All right, welcome to News from the Pew, where we take news from around the interwebs and distill it down to make it slightly less frightening. There goes Steve. He's already done. He's just done for the day. I am your host, Rick Barrett. I am the Armed Catholic. You can find me at thearmedcatholic.com. First-class firearm training with a foundation of Catholic tradition, because the two are compatible. And I have a full panel today, so we are loaded for bear, as the boomers say. Coming to us from the great state of Kentucky, a star from Catholic Palooza this week, and just released a fantastic, powerful song called Far Away. Go check it out on all the platforms. Give it a like, give it a share. It is absolutely another home run. We got Fawaz Yazi, otherwise known as Enoch, joining us today. Back in the panel, the one, the only Jonathan Harrington. We have missed you so much because we have steadily gotten dumber without you to help lift up this boat. So it is good to have you back, my friend. Thank you so much for being with us. And then there's Steve. All right, folks, here's our first story of the day. Come on, he's the godfather of Catholic YouTube. He needs no introduction from me. You've all probably watched 400 of his videos already today. So I don't know. Well, he was trying to play music or something, but no, that's fine. He was trying to do the 1990s where you had to like put your phone against the boombox to get the song and then be like, call me back at the beat. And then you put the song back up because you're trying to do that. Yeah, you all did that. And that just shows you how old you are. First story of the day, ladies and gentlemen. This weekend, The Blaze decided to have an informal presidential debate, talk, whatever you want to call it. And it was hosted by Tucker Carlson. And apparently it did gangbusters, even though I didn't even know it was happening. But we have some video from that. And then we're going to ask the panel what they think of this early test of candidates not named Donald Trump.
Pipeline.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not claiming you did it. No. I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Do you know who did it?
Seems pretty obvious. It was backed by the Biden administration, I would say. I mean, I think all the evidence suggests that, but I wasn't there. But I mean, that seems like a huge step. This is the largest industrial sabotage in history, sent more carbon in the atmosphere than any act ever. And like, there's weirdly no curiosity about who did it. And I think that's strange. What do you think?
There's a lot of things that are strange with the Biden administration. This is the first one.
Oh, Nikki.
I guess what I'm really saying is, if you were running against the Biden administration, to do something like that and shaft our closest allies in the world, which would be Western Europe, and deprive them of the energy they need to run their manufacturing sector and destroy their economy, which it is in the process of doing, like, that's a major sin to have done something like that. You just betrayed our allies, and no one on the right is accusing the Bidens of what they clearly did. Because all measures are relative. So Russia's bad, Russia's a threat, Putin's evil, got it. But the total body count from Russia in the United States is right around zero. Like, I don't know anyone who's been killed by Russia. I know people personally who've been killed by Mexico. The government of Mexico allows fentanyl to be made in its country and to come over our border.
Yes.
And remittances from Mexico are a huge part of their economy. The Mexican government is party to the murder of hundreds of thousands of Americans. So why is Mexico less of a threat than Russia?
Well, two things. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Okay, but
and frankly, here's
no Americans killed by Russia,
Yep.
hundreds of thousands killed by Mexico, but Mexico's our ally and Russia's our enemy. How does that work?
Well, I'm not going to pretend like the legislation I have sponsored and I would sign as President of the United States freezes the assets of the Mexican cartels, targets the Mexican cartels, and hopefully eliminates the flow of fentanyl. Because I do agree with you that 70,000 Americans losing their lives on an annual basis is an existential threat to America that we can solve. We don't have to choose the good news.
Would you be willing to say to the Mexican government, your economy runs on factories right over the border, car plants, for example, but many other manufacturing plants, and we're just going to stop tariffs on that and tank your economy?
Is that the Aflac duck?
And I believe in a limited role of government. And so, if I don't think that California ought to be able to tell parents, you need to have gender-affirming care for the children. The government should not do that. And in the same way, let's keep the government out of it unless it's that extreme case, and let's let parents guide the children. I stand with parents.
So, and amen for standing with parents, and I think everyone in the room would agree with that. But the reason I asked the question was not to bring up a sore subject, which I know that it is, but to ask if in the subsequent 2 years, you had said that you drew the line at castration of physical altercation of a child's body because it's permanent. But in the subsequent 2 years, I think we've learned that hormone therapy for prepubescent children is permanent. It changes the bone structure, it changes the brain of the child. A lot of people believe, including me, that it destroys the child's life, but it is permanent. It's not reversible. So given that and the standard you just articulated, do you have different feelings? I mean, this is a permanent change we are making to a child. Why would we allow that if we don't allow surgery?
Well, permanent change is one issue, but also hormonal treatment is a different issue and can be a different issue. And whenever you look at the bill that I vetoed, there was not any grandfather clause in there. Again, I respect legislators that have a different view, but I think independently, I think of the parents, I think of the Constitution, and actually the court, if you read the decision of the federal judge that struck it down as unconstitutional, really sided with parents as well.
But how is it treatment? I guess that's my question. If you have a child who's born a boy, I want to become a girl. He hasn't gone through puberty yet. He's, say, 10. Is it treatment to prevent him from going through the natural process of adolescence? How is that treatment? It seems not like treatment. It seems like something else.
Well, you have to, Tucker, I hope that we'll be able to talk about some issues. I know that.
Well, this is one of the biggest issues in the country, and I think every person in this room would agree that it is a central issue because these are children who are being altered permanently, and you can defend that alteration, that change, if you like. But there's really no debate about whether or not it's permanent. And so I think it's fair to ask you in a calm, rational, and I very much hope polite way, why you would support that. One thing you can't say is that maybe January 6th, while appalling on one level, maybe it was not an insurrection.
So let me talk about, I haven't talked about this much in the campaign. I'll be very honest with you. You want to know what caused January 6th? There's such a temptation to say that there's one man whose name is unspeakable. We can't.
No, first of all, it's QAnon. It's QAnon.
It's QAnon. You want to know what caused January 6th? Is pervasive censorship in this country in the lead up to January 6th. You tell people in this country they cannot speak, that is when they scream. You tell people they cannot scream, that is when they tear things down. And so the reality is, we were told that you could not question where the virus came from when we all knew it came from a lab in Wuhan, which now they admit. We were told that you could not send a private message to someone on the eve of an election that Hunter Biden's laptop story was actually a true story worth considering before an election. You were systematically suppressed. So think about this. You told you had to be locked down, had to take a vaccine that was mandated and forced down your throat, stay locked down in your home while Antifa and BLM roam and burn the streets of this country. So that's the lead up of 1 full year of telling people you have to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told. And then you tell them, okay, there's an election where you didn't get the information that you needed, such as the Hunter Biden laptop story being real and suppressed. That's what caused January 6th, is a cycle of censorship in this country. And until we look ourselves in the mirror and admit truth on that, we will not move forward as a country. And I think that's the real cause. And we're not, and I'm sorry to say this, Tucker, but I think until we reckon with that reality, I worry that is the beginning of, it's a friendly parley compared to what's to come, unless we step up and speak truth, restore integrity, and actually lead us to who we are as a people, rather than sweeping the truth under the rug.
Administration has been slow in providing military support. Make no mistake about this. We promised them 33 Abrams tanks in January. I heard again 2 weeks ago in Ukraine, they still don't have them. We've been telling them we'll train their F-16 pilots, but now they're saying maybe January we'll let somebody transfer some jets.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President, have you, I know you're running for president. You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern.
And you can put a pin in Mike Pence because that's about it. I mean, robo politician there did not react well to Tucker's speech. But that's just Tucker Carlson. If you don't know going to sit down with Tucker Carlson, that he's going to rant for about 2 to 3 minutes and then throw a question at you while you're like, while you're still trying to process the first part of the question. It's a brilliant strategy because he gets stuff like that all the time. But Flaz, you just watched a couple of people who are seeking to be our better rulers. A, did any stand out to you, good or bad? And B, and this is why we should not put our faith in man or woman in the case of Nikki Haley.
Yeah, was it? Can't even tell nowadays who's who. Yeah, I don't. It's the problem with this whole cycle is it happens every 4 years. You get this theatrics until someone is either elected or selected. Take your pick. And I like, what's his name? Is it Vivek?
Vivek.
Yeah, he says a lot of the right stuff. He's still got some issues. I mean, we can't get a perfect candidate, but you want somebody that can be as closest to, number one, bringing a country together in so far as building virtue. But I honestly think that we're just so divided. There's not a leader in D.C. ain't going to change nothing, and I think people are directing their attention in the wrong spot. It's great entertainment. Every 4 years we get to do this again, and debate stage are coming up. That's always great. All the sound bites. Tucker's a tough guy to go against. He knows how to debate. He knows how to laugh in your face, and what that does is it's actually very effective. It takes your argument and it can completely destroy it. And everybody who's watching it knows that it's a joke. But I was more interested in the audience reaction than I was with Tucker and the person that was answering the question, no matter who it was. And you can tell Vivek was the only one that has read the room, so to say, not so much just that room, but the country. And it's actually answering the questions the right way. I think Trump is also missing some of that. Usually he's pretty good at reading the room, but when it comes to warp speed, he's still holding on to that, and people are not having it, even his own followers or supporters. The problem with Pence is, and again, if I can give Pence the benefit of the doubt, which I don't like to do much, but I think the whole "not my concern" thing, I think that was taken out of context. Well, at least he didn't have a fly on his head this time when he was speaking. I think it was taken out of context. I think what he was really trying to say, it was mistimed, and that's on him. What he was trying to say is that tanks in Ukraine was not his concern, but the American people were. But the way he said it and when he said it made it sound like the American people were not his concern.
Well, yeah, Flaz, he was 15 seconds behind Tucker, and that's what you and I were talking about. Tucker's 2 minutes ahead of you, and so by the time Robot Brain figured out the first part of the question, Tucker had already hit his key points on the back end.
Yep.
Which you're not. It's kind of like a math problem. You're not supposed to. Don't concern yourself with the first half of the problem. Right. You got to wait for Tucker to drop his bomb. And the problem is, Pence was trying to systematically go through, and that's 1990s politician.
Well, he is, and again, it's not reading the room, because you can tell where the majority. When I say majority, I guess you could say half of the country, what they really want, and what they want is lower groceries. They want to afford food. I would say take it even further than that and grow your own, so that you don't have to rely on the system as much, if you can. They want. I guess for those people who want to send their kids to public school, they want a school that's going to educate their kids on things that matter. not any of the ideology. You got the self-affirming care and all the other transgender stuff that they're pushing. The majority of parents don't want that. That's a very small minority. So this campaign, I think, if the candidates can take a play from Youngkin's playbook in 2020, was it 2020 or 2022? Youngkin versus, I forget what his name was, in I believe it was Virginia. He went after the ideology against parents. You know, they were calling moms and people in the school board domestic terrorists. They were keeping a hush hush on the transgender person who violated the rules in the school bathrooms. That's where a lot of this stuff started with the feds going against Catholics. He went out and said, these are the real issues that are affecting parents. Primarily, if you look at the voting records, soccer moms are voting a little bit left. They're going more towards the Democrats, and that's what they've been doing for the longest time. But this is the perfect way for you to kind of grab those folks and say, here is an issue that the Democrats are giving you that is anti-parenting, that's anti-family. And that way you can convert them, because if they lose soccer moms, and they've already lost some of the black votes and a major majority of the Hispanic votes, it's gonna be a lot harder for them to do what they do in order for them to get elected. If you know what I mean, I got to say this more, more smart. So, all the candidates I'm not really impressed with. I really want somebody just to go hardcore, just to say, here's what we need to do to get the country back on track. There's no compromising with people who think children should be mutilated or given hormones. What's the compromise here? So I think we should have somebody that should just go in and say, here's what everybody's thinking. I'm just going to say it out loud. It's what Trump did in 2016, and it worked for him.
Absolutely. It's a great point. Somebody asked a question, what did Pence mean by not his concern? I think Fawaz answered that pretty well. He was trying to address Tucker's first part of the question about tanks or F-16s or any of this other kind of stuff. But by the time he figured it out, Tucker had already hit him with the real question. So Vandy, that answers your question. John, great to have you back. It's a great one to jump back into. Your analysis watching these candidates run for a position that doesn't really matter to any of us.
Well, I'd say the one thing that impressed me was that Vivek seemed to get that, with all due respect for the great point that Tucker made to and maybe against Pence about the material depression in the U.S., where literally the standard of living and people's ability to pay their bills just crashed and has been going down for much longer than just the last few years or even the last decade. As far as I can tell from the people who have looked at it, that is based on your working a normal job. Can you support your family, and can you do it on one income if you're living prudently? So I'm assuming that those points are correct, that basically the material level here in the U.S. has gone down. But I think Vivek hit on something even more important. I don't think he expressed it perfectly, but I think he's getting at something that's much more important and that's much more in line with Catholic, traditional Catholic political views. And that is that it's not just about, what can I get? What do I have the freedom to buy? What would I have the freedom to do or not do in the country? All those things have their importance and all, but a more Catholic view of politics is our society together convinced that we're after a common good in politics? Are we after like a truly human good here? Are we after some sort of rational happiness? Not just the fulfillment of our desires, but happiness in the true political sense that at least Aristotle was after. Even if we're not explicitly Catholic yet, because the only way that we're going to really get things back to normal in the country is if we have that same mentality. So Vivek, I mean, I don't think he has the perfect lingo for it. I don't think he's expressed his convictions, enough for us to know if he's really our man 100% or not. But what he said about what led up to January 6th, I think he's kind of getting more to the point than anybody else so far. I didn't, I just got kind of these highlights, having been out of the country and all. So I think DeSantis gets that as well as anybody else as well, but he just doesn't express it in a way that seems quite pleasant right now. So I'm thinking that Vivek, has it. Tucker gets it better than all of them put together, but so far he hasn't announced his run. So that's my only frustration with the whole thing.
Right. Excellent points once again, John. All right, Steve, your thoughts, man.
The question of Pence, if we were played, if I had a clip that was longer, you would have seen that he basically contradicts his statement of "it's not my problem" right afterwards. He goes into a litany of things afterwards, kind of like as Wise and everyone else has mentioned about that. He says this, and it's a terrible soundbite. That's the main thing. Sure, he did do the Hindenburg to himself, but he was that way anyways. He's still a warmonger like Nikki. If you watch more of the clip, there's a 15-minute one, I think it is 12-minute one. I mean, the dude is all about giving to Ukraine and giving more and making sure Ukraine wins, whatever that means, because it's, as Orwell says, make war to me, it's almost never ending. And that's what we got another Ukraine war, never-ending war that will be in for another 10 years, as we just shilled out another couple billion just yesterday out to the Ukrainians. And obviously that's on top of all the military, the weapons, the tanks, the F-16s that we sent the other day, and they're training them on that. And now we talked about this last week about the bill that comes down to pretty much have like almost a draft in a sense to get people to come from our boys have boots on the ground over there, which we do have boots on the ground. Just depends on what your definition of boots on the ground is over there. So, but no one cares about that. And we care about the drama that's on TV of the Trump being arrested for the third time. And, we're getting high up in the White House, which who can get cocaine in the White House? You have to get through so much level of security. Some AI tech probably has to go into it. I mean, it's not Nicolas Cage going into steal the Declaration of Independence anymore back in our day. It's a little bit higher security in a sense. So, but we don't care about who's getting who's doing some blow up in the White House or anything else that's going on out there. Is Joe falling asleep talking Israel, which you got video of the Israel love with DeSantis and Pence. If you guys want me to show those, but I mean, we talked about Trump as well. I mean, don't forget this. I mean, Sal, the agorist, had a great list. What's your favorite platform of Trump? Crippling inflation, corporate bailouts, continuing the illegal war in Yemen. No one talks about Yemen. We bomb them every day. Bump stock bans. I know.
Bump stock Donnie.
Arming Ukraine, droning American children. Warp speed. That's a big one. Still going on. Continuing the illegal war in Afghanistan. Rehiring John Bolton. That was one of those major league things. When obviously Taylor's thinking. I don't know what he's thinking. Letting Tony Fauci run the country. He gave him the authority on that day in March to run. He basically gave him and what's her face. Here's the keys. Opposing Bitcoin, other crypto. Don't care really that much about it, but that's one of those things. Record 8 Israel, most favored nation. Not pardoning Ross Ulbricht. Nominating Chris Canterbury to lead the ATF. Supporting affirmative action, opposing 3D guns, letting his own J6 supporters rot in prison, selling Hong Kong to the CCP, rehiring Bush advisor Bill Barr, another head scratcher. Hey, I thought we were draining the swamp. Persecuting Julian Assange, pushing states to lockdown. Yep, strengthening background checks. Failed trade war with China, turning the country over to Joe Brandon and the DNC, increasing national debt to $7.8 trillion. You can read the rest. If we think that the hopium thing is going to come in and we're going to win something in this election, we're smoke the hoop. Call Hunter over. You're going to have a good time. Vivek, though, he's not the quote unquote savior, obviously. He's the only one out there that has actually real things that I almost agree with everything he said. I mean, getting rid of the Fed, 90% of getting rid of the Fed, ending a lot of the alphabet soup groups on day one. The man knows his stuff. He's young and articulate, sharp as a whip, knows the economics in and out, because that's a big deal coming through. He knows about the inflation. He knows about the bubbles that are coming up. The other guys, it's, sable rattling. It's everyone's talking about, we can't cut the DOD. I think Pence brought that up. There was the problem with cutting the DOD. And I think did Nikki bring that up as well? Nikki's all about wanting to bomb people. She hasn't met a war, and she was wanting to go after Russia as well. But I know Vivek, everyone doesn't like him for being Hindu, and at this point, your president is a Hindu. How's that different from what you got now, or something else? I mean, the guy's talking about being pro-family and pro-life and all that. We can also work on converting him and saying Hail Marys for him, like everyone did for Trump, sending him, miraculous medals and things like that. And it's not like, we can only, all right, you all and the citizens of the good old US of A have one person in your lifetime. You're allowed to pick to send medals and rosaries and ask to convert. That was your Trump. That's it. You can't ask for anybody else ever to do. You can't send that to the White House. They'll think it's blow. They'll come after you like the Moms for Liberty. You can't do that anymore. All of a sudden, we can't do that for anybody else unless his name sounds like Ronald Hump. What is it? Because he was on TV.
It is Wednesday, so it's Hump Day, so it's perfect.
That's right.
That was actually very. Hey, Mike. Yeah, guess what day it is? Who cares if he's a Hindu? We work that out. We go out there and convert the guy if you want that. But if his platform is actually solid, which it is, even though he has a snowball's chance, and you know what? I mean, let me see the numbers for polls. There it is, right here. 55%. Trump's in jail. It goes up to 75%. DeSantis is at 20%. Vivek went up to 8%. The rest of these guys have.
We're still very early on.
It is
it's very
early.
easy. It's very possible that Ron, with all the Bush pollsters and advisors that he has, does nosedive, because he's struggling to actually, policy-wise, he's fantastic, but he's struggling to capture his personality. He's wooden. He is very wooden. He's very poll tested. He doesn't talk like Vivek, or he doesn't talk like Trump. He doesn't talk honestly. So
McClanahan talked about that too, saying he'll probably ended up crashing and burning, but it's the first round is getting his feet wet, getting some experience.
Yeah, it's the tried and true Republican. You run in one primary, you get the doors beaten off of you, but that's your rite of passage for the next time. The next time you get put to the front of the line because of that. So as long as
he won't be a VP nominee because Trump hates him right now. But Vivek, watch him be the VP candidate.
I think Vivek is fine. There are some questions about his Soros connections, but everybody has Soros connections at this point in time. If you're any kind of politician in any way,
or if you worked on Wall Street.
Yeah. Well, you got to be careful because of his Hinduism. He feels like that doesn't appeal, so he's really like America. He doubles down on all the other core tenets because he feels like he has to make up for being Hindu, which most people wouldn't care if it was a choice between him and quote unquote Catholic Joe Biden. I think we all know we would vote for Vivek 9 times out of 10 because, Joe and drugs and all that kind of stuff.
Politically speaking, I think politically speaking, Trump might pick Johnson as his running mate because that could give him Wisconsin, the Senator Johnson. And if he gets Wisconsin, it's a 2-state race, Arizona or Georgia. That's it. That would give him So
why would he pick Wisconsin?
No, he would pick Johnson to get him Wisconsin, and then that would make it just a 2-state race.
Oh, then that would make it a 2.
Yeah,
all right.
After that,
I mean, yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
No, it's perfect. It's much better in that regard. I mean, sure, if you want to pick senators are fine as VPs because they're kind of useless anyway, right? They're useless politicians anyway, so you might as well pick them. But yeah, Arizona, Georgia, I wouldn't. Philadelphia. Well, that's the reason. Pennsylvania's still within striking distance, although it's fading with each passing day in that regard. But we have one more thing before we leave this. You got to be careful of Ron. You got to be careful of some of these other guys because foreign policy wise, you know, they're just no bueno.
Things that they're doing, though, is they're specifically targeting Israel. And so we made changes to our law to recognize that. And so today, I'm happy to make, and this law just took effect at the beginning of July, I'm happy to announce for everybody that Florida has formally instituted an investigation against Morningstar for violations of our anti-BDS law. We're not letting them target Israel and get away with it. We're using our tools to fight back.
Yeah, if you get Ron off the stage, he's awful. On stage, he's fantastic.
Each one of you. I want to thank you for the privilege of serving as your vice president. It was the greatest honor of my life. And it was a special honor to be a part of the most pro-Israel administration in American history.
Most favored nation.
You know, our administration took steps that truly were historic. We ensured that Israel would always have the resources and the strength to defend herself by herself. From our first day in office, we worked to strengthen the ties that bind the people of our nations together. Under the Trump-Pence administration, we made history.
Trump-Pence.
As members of CUFI, I know better than most. We passed the Taylor Force Act that shut down funding for the Palestinian Authority until they stopped paying stipends to the families of terrorists. And CUFI made that possible. We acknowledged Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
Oh, yeah.
We removed the United States from the UN Human Rights Council for its blatant anti-Israel bias.
I love about this. Oh, yeah, look at that point.
And we shut down the PLO office here in Washington, D.C. And established a Center for Counterterrorism in the Middle East. We issued the strongest executive order ever.
You did that, bud?
Fight anti-Semitism, and we banned taxpayer dollars from any institution of higher education that trafficked in anti-Semitic hate.
That's not my concern, Pence.
And we withdrew from the disastrous Iranian nuclear deal and made it clear to the world that America will never allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon.
One guy's like, yay.
And of course, after years of broken promises, stretching across 4 previous administrations, I couldn't have been more proud to stand beside the President of the United States in the diplomatic room just before Christmas.
There's a violin playing in the background.
When he signed our decision to move the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel.
We are standing here in Arlington, Virginia, outside of the Marriott Hotel, while the CUFI, the Christian United for Israel, is holding their annual summit. And we are here expressing our appreciation for people who have kindness towards Jews and who choose to support the Jewish people. But in our case of supporting Israel, there is a great mistake taking place where many people are confused and thinking that by supporting the state of Israel, they are supporting the Jewish people. Yes, Jewish people suffered at the Holocaust. Jewish people suffered in many other occasions throughout history. But supporting Israel is not support for the Jewish people. On the contrary, it's because we are Jews, we oppose the state of Israel, which is in total violation of Judaism. It's because we are Jews, and it's because we are people who experienced suffering in the past. We don't want to see suffering happen to other people. In the case of Israel, where this is an occupation of Palestine, an oppression of an indigenous people that lived in Palestine for so long, and a country, a people that the Jewish people enjoyed their hospitality amongst them, which Palestine is an excellent example. We are embarrassed when this occupation is being done supposedly in the name of Jews. We are embarrassed when all of this is being done when our religion, the Jewish religion, is sadly being misused to justify, to condone all this violence, what is taking place.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, anybody have anything to say about the Amish?
I mean, Jonathan and Faraz probably can bring up a little bit. I'll open it up on that. But the whole the foreign policy thing is a flawed Protestant idea of we have to save Israel because that's according to the Bible. That's the church, and that we have to get the state of Israel. We're on the side of God, and it's some warped Protestant Book of Revelations interpretation of it. We have to be Israel firsters, not. Again, when they say, I hate saying the word America first because you got North America, South America, everyone's American. Just
say MAGA. Just say MAGA and get it over with, Steve.
Send Trump in here to tell me what it is. But for the Republic, no one cares. You got Detroit people, the cities look terrible, as people have said. And if you stop acting like, if you stop the tyranny and dictatorship that's going on and the authoritarianism up in D.C., and let states and local areas be states and local areas, then you would see cleanups and you would see the quote unquote board, fixed. You would see all these problems get out there. All these problems that you're seeing today is because of, government by checkoffs from the, executive orders, SCOTUS rule and government by judiciary, and all that from the top down. And it just filters down. Instead of filtering up, it filters down and it's just garbage. And that's why, DOD is those guys come out like Vivek said he's going to cut some spending in the DOD. Anybody that's ever said that has had a bad day the next day. And you can throw in 9/11, which they said they were going to cut. They were going to do an audit the day prior. And all of a sudden there was a gigantic corkscrew, somehow missile plane. We don't know what it is that nailed that office on the next day. So you got to be careful when you come after the DOD, which Israel runs the government. Outside, it's pharma and Israel. You can't trash
All right,
those.
folks, it was good to hang out with y'all. We'll be seeing you next week. Well, you can catch us on Rumble as we get absolutely booted off this platform right now because Steve has decided to tell the truth and now it's all who they're running. It's all the people that are running it. But you are correct. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying it's going to be a shorter show. So let's move on while we can, while the YouTube censors have not heard us yet. Speaking of censors, there was a report that came out earlier this week talking about how, and I know this is not going to shock any of you, Democrats are seeking to root out domestic extremists at the Department of Homeland Insecurity. And it's not a shock because it seems like everything is being with, I don't know, everybody talks about coming collapse, this, that, and the other thing. But let's take a look.
Height of the COVID pandemic, schools, teachers, and administrators.
Oh, it's Jen Psaki!
Rapidly turned our education system into the front line of the right's ongoing culture war. That anger, no doubt, sparked the rise of organizations now focused on taking over school boards, pulling books from the shelves, and changing curriculums in schools across the country. In fact, according to a 2022 report from a nonprofit that tracks censorship in America, 70% of those organizations were formed in about an 18-month period, beginning at the start of 2021. Among the largest of these new groups, which you may have heard of, is Moms for Liberty. And it's recently become something of a political powerhouse. Just a few weeks ago, they hosted 5 Republican presidential candidates, including the frontrunners, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. They all came out for Moms for Liberty. Now, the group has declared itself as a nonpartisan organization. And its name does sound innocuous enough. Moms, great, sounds good. Liberty, awesome. Who doesn't like liberty? Moms for Liberty. As the mom of 2 young kids, that even sounds good to me. But It's vague enough that even some of its own members are pretty unclear as to what the group is really all about, what they're a part of. One mom who became treasurer of an Indiana chapter was even quoted asking, "What am I a part of? I need to know these things." Fair question. Well, I'm here to help. I'm here to help you. Because as benign as Moms for Liberty may sound, its agenda is unmistakably extreme. For instance, you may not know that Moms for Liberty has been helping to lead the movement in pulling books from the library shelves, including classics like The Bluest Eye, great book, The Kite Runner, amazing book, and Mouse, as well as other books that deal with race, diversity, and sexuality. The group has turned school board meetings into unruly shouting matches. As an attendee at one Florida meeting described, quote, "They turn around and scream at me that I am a commie and teachers want to see all kids fail. This group brings out the worst in people." Right. The group says this work, all of this shouting, is the work of joyful warriors, is what they call it. Sounds a lot more to me like pretty aggressive harassment. And that behavior is not isolated. It's part of a bigger pattern. Chapters and members across the country have led campaigns targeting community advocates, school board members, and opposing groups. They have repeatedly sent intimidating messages, openly threatened officials, and even baselessly leveled charges of child abuse and sympathizing with pedophilia. Unbelievably, an Indiana chapter even put out a newsletter that quoted Adolf Hitler, saying, quote, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." That is a Hitler quote. And while they eventually apologized, the organization seemed to later regret that apology.
There's always a reason why something happens, right? Yes. One of our moms in a newsletter quotes Hitler. Woo! I stand with that mom.
Standing by a mom who quotes Hitler in a newsletter. People cheering for that. That's what you just saw. And as for their claim that they are just a group of concerned, nonpartisan moms who happen to care about liberty, consider this. One of the founders, whose name is notably omitted from its website, is a current Republican school board member who is married to the now chairman of the Florida Republican Party. In 2021, he told the Washington Post, quote, "I have been trying for a dozen years to get 20 and 30-year-old females involved with the Republican Party. But now Moms for Liberty has done it for me."
Talking off camera, and I do want to start here. Congressman Kevin Kiley, who started a conversation today, Republican from California, may get a lot of attention later once people digest what was going on. He was telling FBI Director Christopher Wray about parents being targeted and that DOJ letter that went and said, this is how we're going to handle them. We recognize them with the terrorist unit inside the FBI. Wray said, "I never followed any directions. I never made any changes." And then Kevin Kiley, representative from California, said, "Well, do you think you owe the American public an apology?" And he said, "No, because I didn't do what that memo said." What did that mean to you?
That meant a lot to me. It meant that perhaps he disagreed with the directive from the Department of Justice, which I think that's the answer to the question, because later he was asked, "Do you contest this statement?" The Justice Department's own documents demonstrated that there was no compelling nationwide law enforcement justification for the Attorney General's directive. He did not say he disagreed with that statement. So it sounds like some disagreement, but the overarching picture I take away from this, and this is, I think, a gratuitous interpretation, is the FBI was always 2 steps behind. This memo happens. Where was Wray when this memo comes out? Sounds like maybe he didn't take the directive.
I want to just step in real quickly because we do have a clip of Representative Kiley talking about what you were saying, and then I'll come right to you. Let's watch.
An investigation of parents. We had a sweeping mobilization of federal power against the most protected core First Amendment activity, the right of citizens to speak and petition their government on the most important of issues, the education of their children. And you are telling me that the entire basis for that, there was no evidence to support it.
Well, I want to be clear. We, the FBI, as I said, were not and did not investigate people for exercising.
Should Attorney General Garland rescind the memo?
I'm sorry?
Should Attorney General Garland rescind that memo?
Oh, that's a question for the Attorney General.
Do you believe he should?
Again, that's a question for the Attorney General.
Do you believe that the Attorney General should apologize to parents who are the subject of that memo?
I'm not going to speak to that.
Will you apologize for the FBI's own role?
I think the FBI conducted itself the way it should here, which is that we've continued to follow our longstanding rules and have not changed anything in response to that memo.
Yeah, lot to digest there. And I just figure that's a very good point. So, first of all, I'm going to throw it to John because I know John. I didn't let him back in before we exited the last section. That's my fault. But just your overall feeling on the divide that's taking place here. Red states getting redder. I mean, Psaki's going to sit up there and talk about Moms for Liberty when in 2020. She was on she was at the White House. She was the press secretary and dodged questions about BLM, and she dodged questions about riots, and she dodged questions about all these other groups and Antifa claiming they were fine. But now you have this one group, and they're going to find every single thing about it, and they're going to twist it this way, that way, and the other way. There's just no hope. As Waz was kind of talking about earlier when we were talking about presidential candidates, there's really no hope coming back from that.
No.
But make sure you get your first point in before you answer that from the last segment.
Okay. Well, it kind of leads into this, and it was mainly that the scariest thing to me about what Pence said. I mean, it's bad that DeSantis was there at this pro-Israel thing, but that's such a deep hole to get out of. I mean, I think Steve kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, that the country's so and has been so long invested in everything it can do to promote Israel that I mean it's hard to see how that can ever be fully rescinded as long as the country stays kind of exactly what it is. But the way Pence worded it, like we're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon, talking about broken promises. I mean, if you just think about it for a second as an American, as a citizen, this is the only country that's ever dropped an atomic bomb. So talk about broken promise. I mean, nobody else has ever deigned to incinerate people.
Hey, don't worry. There's going to be a major motion picture about it in 2 days.
Two of them. Not just one, two of them.
Oh, wait. I was like, no, Barbie's not about the atomic bomb, but you're talking about the actual atomic bombs. Never mind.
I mean, so I guess, I mean, to me, that's the big thing is that the people that the FBI directors, he said that last thing, that they are doing what they have always been doing. That's exactly what I'd be terrified about most. That they're not going to admit that they were targeting folks there in that investigation. Of course they're going to. I mean, the FBI has been lying from the very beginning of its existence. It was basically created as an organization to run subterfuge like that, just to lie about what the actual aims of the intelligence agencies are. I mean, they and the CIA. That's been their goal from day one. That's been their MO from day one. And I mean, probably one of the best examples of the height of hypocrisy now is the U.S. trying to keep other nations from getting an atomic bomb after we're the only ones who've ever dropped one, So all of it seems to be of one piece, with what those, granted, those are mainly Democrat people that you were showing in that last set of clips there. But until we get someone who's ready to get off that moralizing soapbox, because it's such an immoral soapbox, actually. I mean, I don't even know how any of the Republicans end up being much better in the long run. I mean, thinking that not thinking that there's something hugely hypocritical about the way the U.S. is going to patrol who gets these bombs and who doesn't. I mean, it's so nuts. It's hard for me to even process. But that second roll, it all comes back down to how these power hungry folks that have been in power in the U.S. for so long, from near the very beginning, but especially as of late, abuse language. I mean, Jen Psaki talking there about censorship and pulling books off shelves. I mean, these are the folks who've been trying to take Mark Twain stuff off the shelves for the last decade or two. And if someone asked her point blank, hey, should we take off truly pornographic material from the shelves of a children's library? As a mom of 2 young children, what's she going to say? Oh, no censorship. It's hypocrisy left and right. And it's the way they do that, as famous Catholic philosopher Joseph Pieper said a long time ago, is abusive language. That's how they abuse power. They abuse the language. When you do that and you keep talking about liberty this and freedom that, I mean, she's talking about, in fact, it's kind of funny that Jen Psaki, I mean, just despicable woman that she was throughout her time there as press secretary. Just so many lies under her watch. And yet she actually let out a very, very brilliant point, is that, yes, you can even use the word liberty to promote the greatest slavery possible, like that. And, you know, so yeah, I don't know whether she meant to do, I'm assuming she didn't mean to let out, you know, such a truth bomb, but yeah, she did show that by being ambiguous with words like that, you can really get away with a lot of damage. So
Enoch, your thoughts?
Yeah, not my, I mean, that last point that Jonathan made. Yeah, I guess we've all heard the word pro-choice, right? Great ambiguous word that has done so much damage. Everything. What's her name was? This is the problem with this. What this country's gotten to. It's such an intellectual mess that you could literally take what she said and exactly word for word, put it on Fox News, except only for the left, and it would have the same exact meaning. This is the problem. I'm saying that we're so divided. There is no middle ground anymore. It used to be to where we have at least a couple of things in common. In 2001, after 9/11, a Republican elected or selected President George Bush had a 90% approval rating. I mean, that's unheard of now. It's impossible. They've literally brainwashed people into thinking that I'm on this team and I'm on this team and I hate you for having an opposite opinion against mine and I have to be right. It's so childish way of thinking, and it's the world is so much more complicated than that. But this is what you get now. You get people who stick into the bubble. There's that perfect example. What was that one doctor, the jab guy who Kennedy wanted to debate on Joe Rogan? And
oh yeah, I don't know who that is, but I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. Like people know about this. What does he do? Instead of going on Joe Rogan and just can, according to him, can obliterate intellectually the thinking and the ideas of Kennedy. What does he do? He goes back to his own little bubble. He goes back to MSNBC and CNN and talks to people who agree with him. These people cannot take any pushback in real time. They have no answers for it. Same thing with Psaki, who always loved wearing red because she's a communist. So
I thought because she was a ginger.
Yeah, peppermint patty, right? But see, that's what I'm saying is there. This is why I think Vivek is so brilliant. I saw him one time on CNN, the same day I saw him on Fox, and he was articulate and was able to push back. If you cannot handle the heat, if you cannot take your ideas and truth and go on to the opposite side, people who don't like you, who disagree with you, and defend it, then you shouldn't be running for public policy. You shouldn't be running for any government job. So you're going to take this liberty for women. Again, look at what she said. Go back. Everything she said, if she was Fox News, that would be exactly what they say about Antifa, about BLM, about any of the leftist group. One of them one of the members quotes Hitler, the other ones quote Marx. I mean, give me a break. So we're so divided. We're like so much divided in this country that there is no political leader that's going to solve this. What's going to have to happen is it's going to be a grassroots movement of ideologies, and one of them is going to win out. In this country, you have two things that could happen. It's going to go so far left that they're going to persecute, which they're doing now with moms, the domestic terrorists. They're going to persecute the political people who have political ideologies that are different from theirs. Or people might wake up one point and say, this is getting ridiculous. I'm going to move so far that we might be very, very Catholic one day. This is the only two ways that I'm seeing. There's only two roads. And I think for this country, unfortunately, it's not going to be the Catholic route. It's going to be the very leftist route, which might unfortunately destroy the country. And we're going to have to rebuild it from scratch.
I agree. Let's see. Steve, your thoughts?
I just thought about when Jonathan brought up about the words matter thing. Here's was it The Morning Joe?
This actually offers a very good warning about what happens in a second Trump term with somebody who's learned his lessons instead of just being a bloviator that goes to Twitter when he's angry. Ron DeSantis has actually given him perfect examples. This is how you crush businesses. This is how you intimidate CEOs. Again, I was talking this past weekend to a Republican from that's worked for the Republican Party for a generation who said DeSantis the free state of Florida is a joke. This person said, I deal with CEOs every day who are petrified that Ron DeSantis will notice them. And they're keeping their heads down. They're not doing it because they know he has the ability to use the power of the centralized state to crush them or to make their lives miserable.
But the centralized DC is totally fine.
Right. And you've got the front runner of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, the number 2 candidate by polls, Ron DeSantis or DeSantis or whatever it is. They're both fascists. They both want authoritarianism in America. And the thing I can't understand, maybe you can all enlighten.
I bring up for the language because they use the F-bomb, but they just use it. They don't know what it means.
Why did Donald Trump make an effort to announce this last couple of days? He wants to make people afraid. He wants people to think that authoritarianism and Trump are inevitable and bow to him and make it much easier for him to walk in 16 months.
Well, this is.
Now they go on. I couldn't find the bigger clip, but it's on. You can find who they talked to. Who talked to? Oh, the Hill did a big video on it, and they're not on our side by any means, and they just tear it apart because they're talking about, wait a minute, you're upset. You call these guys fascists for wanting to fire people in the FBI? That was the whole clip with the FBI a minute ago. All right, DeSantis has come out saying that he wants to get rid of people in the FBI. Vivek has talked about that, cutting the FBI by 90% or whatever it was, or getting rid of it in general. I would say get rid of the whole thing, CIA, FBI, anything that has an alphabet soup part of it. And they call that this fascism. Huh? No, so you want status quo authoritarianism, pretty much, by the way. You're going to take what we give you, even though they say democracy is hurtful democracy. So if your quote unquote vote matters and you get somebody in charge and they do whatever they want to the federal agency up there, that's not democracy. That's fascism somehow. But CNN, MSNBC, they've been saying, "Oh, he's a fascist." Every time someone throws something out there, a trial balloon goes fascist. You know, fascist. It doesn't matter what you do if you don't think like them. It's fascist, which exactly has nothing to do with fascism on this. Now, when he talked about that attempt on DeSantis about the CEOs, everyone, their brothers moving to Florida. You look on anything has anything the housing industry on there. It just you can't afford a house. I can't afford it. I could probably afford a trailer down there, maybe, and I would for what the cost for a nice house in South Carolina would be. But there's no income tax. No, well, I think there's a corporate sales tax or sales tax a little bit higher. But there's no. I mean, the business is booming on there. But if you're going after the kids, okay, maybe he'll go after your head. Fine with me. That's who does. If you're stupid enough to do that as a CEO, so hey, let's go after a bunch of these weirdos and the trannies, things like this, and just start indoctrinating the children and put sex in front of them and porn, all that. Yeah, you should have the state go after you like that. The state is in Florida. And it's just funny how there's the centralized state of Florida. But the centralized federal, national government, general government is okay. I mean, that's even worse. I mean, at least in Florida, it goes back to federalism, you can move with your feet. You don't like Florida? Fine. Move. There's plenty of U-Hauls that can take you back to California. There's no U-Hauls that can get you out of California. But if you don't like California, you can move out of California somehow. You got to find something else, maybe a pod. But also one thing about the words matter is the whole idea of centralized country type deal, unified country, whatever. And a nation country also, you hear that with sports teams a lot Is this is Indian Nation, this is Gamecock Nation or Tiger Nation. Tiger Nation in the state of South Carolina is the upstate of South Carolina. It's not Gamecock is Columbia, mostly Columbia, South Carolina. You hear Panther Nation, keep pounding Nation. It doesn't reach up to Philadelphia. That's Eagle Nation, and it's all different like that. There's not one nation, and it's because the people in Florida or the Southeast have a different point of view, different life, different language, different more coded life, different way we do things than the Northeast, the Northwest, Southwest, all that. There's a lot more to it. So when you unify everything into the one cauldron type deal, yes, it will be divided beyond division. But if you think about it as way it should have been before the 1860s, where you had this state pride in the sense, hey, I'm a Virginian, I'm a Carolinian, I'm a Floridian, I'm a this, I'm a Californian,
I'm a Texan.
Instead of this, then we're not as divided because the people in your area, you think alike. Maybe your religion might be a little bit different, but your definitely politics are going to, anybody, I swing a dead cat in anywhere in this county right here is going to be pretty much in line with what I think. If probably same thing with
you're a tyrant, Steve.
Do I?
That's because you're a tyrant.
I know, but it's just but you're wherever you are. If you're in California and you're a left weirdo, pretty much everyone's going to around you might be the same line of thinking. You're in LA, you got a high probability on that. So the division in the local area is probably not as big as we see because of media, but the division on the quote unquote national level. You go to say abortion. Oh yeah, we got the most Americans want abortion because of the polls. They're for this and that. Well, if you look at the big cities and all that, that gives you a big warped view. It doesn't give you a realistic view of the area like Kentucky. Sure, the people around outside of Lexington do not think like people that live in downtown Lexington or say in Cincinnati or Raleigh here or Charlotte or maybe Orlando. It's very different, and that's the whole thing on this. On federalism in general and localism, and on top of that is if you worry about your local and areas and you get that, it's a big mindset change because we've all been indoctrinated in that, and it took a lot to just get me to be pulled out of that. But we keep, the one nation, one nation, one nation. You can't fix that. There's no fixing that one bit. But if you break it down, then there's a chance to fix things and change to fix things. Then you can maybe fix the federal. It's a long shot. But that's the only way for a secular perspective on that. If you look at it as a big blanket statement, pretty much looking at the USA as Russia, eliminate the state boundaries, eliminate that. You just got one blob on there, one same color. And then that's where you got Moscow and DC, a second Moscow in a sense. And you're not going to win that. It's might as well just, we talk about the politics and all this, and it's just wasting time because there is no change. You get selected. There's nothing we can do to fix, and good luck because the feds are going to take control over it because they run this shit. But if you get that mindset, no, the feds do not do that. And everyone else starts filing suit on that. It's not like the whole movie Ants. We got a lot more ants than they do of grasshoppers up there. And if people start figuring that out, then the feds will have a different point of view. And it used to be like that. Hence why they did have the Bill of Rights on things like that. Now we act like the Bill of Rights is the ice war, the king, the ice war, the hot. Here, it's a First Amendment issue down here, a Second Amendment issue. No, and as you start thinking that way, you'll see those little errors on, especially the media, because they keep pounding away at things like that. You have to, it's just like the whole Israel thing. You have to kowtow to Israel because that's what you're supposed to do, and never question it. And you got to say the red, white, and blue all the time because you have to look more patriotic than the other guy. Because if you do, then people will like you more, even though that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But that's modern day politics.
Yes, Steve.
I changed my energy drink. That's why.
Hey, you getting everybody fired up. We can't have one show without a classic Steve Cunningham rant. And so now that we've got it, which that's a good thing. Don't get. It's not an insult. We all tune in for it, my man. That's absolutely what it is. So moving on. I mean, because I got nothing to. I mean, nobody can top that. Last story of the day. Our former POTUS, who that's not even a title we should be using, but it is. Barack Obama has decided to weigh in on the quote unquote book banning controversy by releasing a letter saying that all of these books that are being banned, like some of the ones that Saki Atumi mentioned earlier, helped him in his development in his life. And then he mentioned like one author, and then the rest of them were LGBT, MAP, Alphabet Mafia authors, which a lot of people beg the question. So, Obama, are you trying to tell us that, you're coming out as a homosexual? I can't explain it. So I'm going to throw it to Jason Whitlock and let him try to break this down a little better than I can.
Played race card. Will it work? Are black women so lost in racial idolatry and the spoils of perceived power that they will sacrifice their children to sexual perversion? Are white feminists so filled with bitterness and lust for power that they will sacrifice other people's children to sexual perversion? I can't answer those questions. We live in a time where people think nothing of grown men gyrating their genitals in front of kids at pride parades. We live in a time when Obama's skin color provides him the cover to justify and promote blatant immorality and dishonesty. We live in a public square filled with whataboutism. We can't complain about Obama's hypocrisy and lack of morality because George W. Bush and Dick Cheney pretended Osama bin Laden from a cave 5,000 miles away collapsed Building 7 without an airplane. And what about January 6th and Brett Favre? We expect and accept that our politicians lie to us. The acceptance of those lies doesn't mean we should ignore the people sexualizing and grooming children. Some sins are sins and others are an abomination. The first gay president is a master of deception, confusion, and hiding in the closet.
Little context. Here's the thing what he's talking about that Obama came out with, and his brother's quoting, "This man is definitely gay." He took it down as Rick mentioned. But there's just, it's just some weird stuff that goes in with it for the whole thing. But go ahead, Rick.
Yeah. So the whole thing is Obama. A lot of people were saying, and I think a lot of people on this panel would agree, he was installed for that very reason. I mean, he was very conservative when he ran in 2008. Marriages between a man and a woman, very about the borders, blah, 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 blah. But all of that was just to get him, planted in there because he added because I think Clinton was the first one to make June or whatever Pride Month is gay and lesbian month. And then Obama added the B and the T to that month to make it all inclusive. Of course, some are saying that they're setting up for a certain person that's near Barack Obama, who may be his wife or may not be, to come out as a potential Big Mike. But the idea here is that Obama's stepping back in to reassure the group that the Democrats need, namely blacks, namely, really, if you want to drill it down, single black women, that it is okay to continue to support the LGBT MAP mafia. And it's just incredible, Fwaz, I'll throw it to you first, how these politicians, and you could say the right, feels like they have the same, they have the same access to like evangelicals, like whatever they say, evangelicals will support them. But the way that they're using this to continue to shore up support by highlighting these things in the misdirection that's taking place.
Yeah, it's a good point. They're doing the same thing with they continue to bring on the abortion because they want the feminist college girls to just go out in droves and to do what they did in 2022 midterms, which I think had a huge impact on the midterms. The Republicans, historically speaking and statistically speaking, were supposed to have a massive landslide, and they ended up losing the Senate with I think we were tied. Now we had less, one less. So that's what it's all about. It's just shoring up the base. It's making sure the base gets out there now that 2024 is coming in. I don't know if we'll see Michelle run. And the only reason I say that is because, why go through the hassle when Obama's pretty much running this administration to begin with? He's doing it from the background. He's doing the comfort of his own couch. Why campaign and go through all that again when you're already the president now. Because it's clear as day. You think the senile old man sitting over there in the White House is running anything? So it's the right will do the same thing, left will do the same thing. We've divided this country in half, and whoever can get their base to come out could win the election. I think people, when it comes to Trump in 2020, he did outperform any Republican that's running for re-election. But I think there's a lot of people that were convinced of a lot of the left's, I guess you would say, misinformation on the news on a lot of his
mean
dealings.
tweets.
Yeah,
tweets.
Exactly. And I think people were Trump fatigued. They were like, we just want to go back to normal. Let's put a boring president so we go back to normal. And now they know that there is no normal. We're never going back to normal. This is everybody's competing for attention, whether the politicians or the media. The media has lost an incredible amount of viewers. People are losing interest. People are canceling cable. They're getting their information online. They're not competing in that realm anymore. So what do you do? You got to continue to divide the nation for your own personal gain, and Barack is no different. Politicians are one of the worst people as you could think of, because they're spineless. They have no spine. They'll go wherever the wind is, and anybody who does not hold their ground is a coward. So these are the people that we want running our country and everything else. So it's going to continue to get worse, unfortunately, before it starts to get better again, and it will get better. This is how history is. It seems to me the last 2,000 years has just been, the church being persecuted, the church gaining, power again, and things running, I guess you could say, smoothly. It's in a sense to where it's never been too smooth, but when the church has its when the church has its ducks in a row and everything going straight, the world will follow. But we've gotten to a point now where we're being persecuted again. The church is going to be persecuted down to kindle to almost nothing, and then we will regain power again and run a good society. And then we're just going to go back and forth, and just put on your seatbelt and stay in the state of grace.
Yeah, I mean the bright spot there is every time the church is persecuted, to bring up that point, it only gets stronger. So at this point, maybe that's something we're due for. John, your thoughts?
Pretty much just in line with what Fawaz said, because we don't have anyone. But it's kind of liberating in a certain sense when you see how more or less unified the world is that it almost makes it easier to be an integralist Catholic. If you don't know what integralism is, look it up. Do a quick deep dive. It makes it easier to see that it's the church or it's madness. Like, I mean, eventually, all of these political approaches that are not informed by the faith, by Holy Mother Church, they end up leading to the absurd eventually. It's just now. Does that mean that we can support one that's going to lead us there more quickly? Because it scratches our fancy, it tickles our fancy one way or the other. No, you can't outright support evil in any case, but or directly. But it makes it, in a certain sense, easier for us to sit back and judge these things because I'd say maybe more than ever the world is aligned. And it's funny too when you think about, well, not funny. It's really a disaster. It's sad, but in a certain sense, it's kind of poetic justice. Is it right? Really, right at the end of World War II, because supposedly the good side won. That's when basically I'd say a lot of Catholic political philosophers, way too many, lost their minds. They thought, okay, we can cooperate with the world now because the good side won here in the world, right? In this big world war, the good side won. And I mean, Jacques Maritain, he was probably the one who was most guilty of it, but a lot of others did as well, and especially on the American side, John Courtney Murray and others, and basically just forgot what the Bible said about the world. And maybe now, 80 years later, we're starting to remember what the gospel said about the world and how the church should and really always is opposed to the world. So, I guess we can look at that as one benefit, is that there's not a ton of difference between the supposedly good guys and supposedly bad guys now. I mean, we kind of pick apart much more of the Democrats, obviously, because it's so much easier because they've gone to that absurd much more quickly. But most on the right are running there just at a little bit slower pace.
Yeah, that is a very, very well put. Steve, your thoughts? Take us out of the segment.
Just wanted to break down. Hey, Israel's on fire, is bombing Syria right at the moment. Damascus is on fire thanks to a U.S.-led Israel bombing. Won't be on mainstream news. You can pretty much book that. I got 5 on that. But no, on the Barack first gay president thing. Notice, Willock brought this up too. He said, notice that when this came out, that he didn't go up and tell people, say, hey, don't call me that. I got family, I got kids. Anybody else with 2 cents would have gone up, hey man, call me something else. Can't call me gay. I mean, that's not good. I mean, he's embracing this. And remember 2015, SCOTUS brought in forced the gay marriage bill on everyone. So the states voted against it, but no, you don't have federalism. That's all gone. SCOTUS, government by judiciary, got to shove the gay marriage bill through, which unconstitutional. He brought up in a couple of things. There some good points about, was it Royce or no? It was Jason that brought up about the idea of him going up to his friends and saying, "Would you give up race or your heterosexuality?" And then he goes, "That was a hard question for a lot of them to ask because people just I'm accepting my blackness. I will embrace the gay stuff." He said, "No, how does that happen?" It goes with that one thing about Gilbert Arenas the other day, just calling out the LGBT stuff. And even though they're a woke group, the NBA is, they're not digging this whole thing. And a lot of people don't know what's going on in those schools or in their communities and things like this. And the whole drag thing about, I thought it was a great point that they brought up about it's the feminists, because it's mostly the women bringing their families there, and their hatred toward masculinity, because they're making them dress in women's clothes and have them parade around and dance like, doing theirs, instead of being manly, they're making them kowtow down to their level in a sense. Almost like a self-hatred, hatred of men, but a hatred of themselves too, because they don't care about if a man wins female of the year. It's all this just weird, but it's I don't know how else to say anything besides the church leading the way on this, going, we have lost our ever living minds. And this is the only way out we got to start saying no. I mean, you got a couple bishops here and there just going out and saying, all right, that's enough is enough, but it isn't enough. I mean, there are priests doing it at the local level. You're not going to see the quote unquote celebrity ones pan off on it. There's a few that are on the YouTube channels that have it, like Father Kirby or things like that will blast it. But outside of just doing that, a lot of us are just all talk. We're not storming the local areas like we could. I mean, he brought up the point about if the black mother really knew what was going on, the fathers too, there would probably be violence at the school halls going, you're making my kid do what? Or they're coming home going, mommy, I got to cut off my, just the stuff they're getting indoctrinated with, and they're going to get worse off because people just don't care. It's, hey, football season's coming up. I saw that at the local news the other day. It's that time of the year again. They do not care. They, as in everybody, most people, the hoi polloi, do not care about what's going on. Football season's coming up. Can Alabama recover? Who's going to beat Georgia? Can anybody else beat Georgia? How's the NFL season going to do? Hey, these things that you think of looking at going, it's the circus, it's a bread and circuses idea. We're getting fed, we're fat and happy, still got electricity.
Hey man, Barbie comes out tomorrow.
Happen. Do what?
Barbie comes out tomorrow.
Barbie comes out tomorrow. I know Rick will be in the first seat, getting in there. He's got his,
the poll hasn't come back yet, so I don't know. We'll see.
Although nobody cares. We don't care. We don't care enough. We care, but we don't care enough for wanting to fix it. We really care. Just like the church things. If we really cared, like all the anchors, like the Desert Fathers and things like that, or like you see, like Father Lazarus of the desert monk out in I think is he in Egypt. We would be doing stuff like that. If we really thought the church is in chaos, we would be doing things so insane to most people that they probably would have the feds come to us and ask, "Hey, what is going on here? You're up at 2:00 in the morning doing prayers for an hour. You might the neighborhood hears bells or something. Incense is coming out your windows. There's 50 men living in Appalachian mountains. Doing
take back Appalachia.
You know what I mean? If we really, really, and that's kind of what that podcast I made with the avoiding the distractions. When I play ball, we do anything I was going to do to get on that team to make it on there. Practice 8 hours a day, shoot till he couldn't do. My feet were all screwed up. I had to tape those up. My knees are all messed up from those days. Whatever needed to be done was going to get into the building. You can relate that to a church. Are we getting to the point that the gym was locked? How can I get in? All right, can I play with the lights off? Can I do this for the whole time? Stretch, warm up, do the activities, prayer, do the asceticism, work out, eat. Do we have that heart? And overall, I don't think we have that heart. No one's busting into the church at the middle of the night to get some shots in, where prayers in or stuff like that, trying to relate the two, or fasting to the point that there might be, not to say that you have to go out there and make yourself sick, but athletes, they're gonna do the extra mile. Like Christian McCaffrey, those guys, they build those little things like the humidors in a way to sleep in and make sure their body gets enough rest, what they need to get out. They're eating the best, they're putting the best stuff in, they're stretching right there. They're doing meditation, everything they can to be top level in their field. And I think Garange brings this up many times. I know Full Sheen brings that up too. We don't have that heart.
Well, Steve, let's be honest though. If we did all that and things got fixed, how many people overnight will lose their grift?
There's a lot of money. There's just like in anything else. That's why they haven't cured diseases. That's why there's homeless populations. I mean, there's a lot of money in the fallen aspects of this world.
Yeah,
there is.
Unfortunately, that's how I started that podcast. I asked a buddy of mine, do you have a montage of all the problems in the church? And it's got to be something. There wasn't any. I created my own. It literally took me 5 minutes because it was not hard to find that. I mean, and it all came from Catholic channels, except for 2 or 3 from news channels. They were from the top, most popular YouTube channels, and it was just going, man, there's no talking about the catechism, no talking about the faith, no talking about prayer. It's all about bad, 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 bad. This is terrible. The Pope sucks. This is that. What is these priests, these bishops doing? The synod's going to hell in a handbasket. We get that. We're just as bad as this TMZ then at this point. And that should have been hard for me to find all those problems. But man, I don't watch the other channels to know all that. But good grief, that was so easy to find.
Well,
I mean, yeah, the fact of the matter is, and I explained it to a non-cat. I was like, we've had bad popes for a long time. We have this idea that right now, it's the most important time in history because we exist in it and we have YouTube. So we have to tell everybody, and there are a lot of guys that, being in this space, I like them all. I have no issue with them, but sometimes there's a little bit too much preaching there. And I'm just like, you might be skating the line on that one, considering you're just a dude, or lady in some cases. And It's not because I'm trying to throw shade at him. It's just that once in a while, it's actually okay not to question to not question the authority of the church. Right? We all, of course, I don't want to stumble into the idea of obedience and non-obedience and all this other kind of stuff. But it's like, hey,
Acknowledge the
man,
bad, but bring the good out of it.
yeah, no, I understand. I understand that some people need to hear that stuff, and I get it. Not my thing. Like I told you, I'm the medieval Catholic. Just let me be on my farm. Let me take care of my quail, and I'll go to church. The day the church doors are locked is the day that I'm like, okay, now we have an issue. But the Japanese, how long? 2,000 years?
You can still make a couple centuries. They made it.
The Chinese right now, the underground in China right now, now, they're dealing with it too.
Jocko had a great line. He goes, extreme ownership is owning up to the situation you got. You might not be able to control the situation presented to you, but you have control of yourself on how you act in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so, I mean, I don't want to get too far into this because you brought up some good points, Steve, and any farther, it's going to seem like we're trying to throw shade at other channels, and we're not.
I brought up the idea it's like a team meeting. You set up a team meeting you have the coaches stay out, everyone sits together. The idea is to build unity to do better. And after every team meeting, you usually win. And that's the thing. If everyone could get on, you want to unite the class, let's unite that way to promote the good and true to be. Not saying put your head in the sand. There's no problems out there. That's just stupid. And no one's saying that. But to harp on that 24/7, 100% of the time, that's doing the opposite. No one's converting. It's like, you know what? I just saw this about how bad the church is. Yeah, I'm gonna convert today. No, you can still. You go to hell with a bad pope. You can go to heaven with. You can go to heaven with a bad pope. You go to hell with a saintly pope. I'm sure people went to hell under Pius X.
It's a great point. In the end, what is the charge for all of us from the Pope on down? Saving souls, right? No matter how, whatever your vocation.
No. It's a smash that like button, hit that subscribe.
No.
Make sure you get the bell so that everyone's coming over.
Yeah, no. Let's stay off that. I know what you're saying, Steve. I know exactly what you are, buddy. Because Steve can say all this stuff. He's the Godfather. Nobody's gonna come at him. So
come at. Call me if I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Show me I'm wrong. But then I'm looking for a team meeting that gets better.
No, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
It ain't calling anybody else saying you stink, you this, you that. I want to do better.
Yeah. Flaz, you got any thoughts on this?
No. I was talking about the whole, like for example, Charlie Kirk's and those guys. They've created an entire industry, an entire movement off of this issue. So if things end up working out, and for example, Trump comes in and takes out the deep states, and then America's back again, and now you don't have the bad news and the fear porn to sell to people. So what happens to your business? So, you want to, it's like the Senate hearings. It does nothing whatsoever, but it creates sound bites. It makes you look better. You get reelected. You get all this funding, but then you do nothing to solve the problem. And right now, this is where we're at in this country. It's becoming an industry of information, and everybody's just picking their audience and making money off of it. They don't want to solve any problems. They just want to keep complaining about it.
Yep. All right. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I think we cleared that subject out. It's time for the Saint of the Week and the Cry Room. Fwaz, do you have candidates?
I do, yeah. My Saints of the Week, man, it's going to be everybody that was involved in Sound of Freedom. Every single person from everybody. Just every single person, man. What an incredible idea. A great movement. I believe it's hit 100 million now at box office. It goes to show you that people are really they're hungry for something like this, and hey, I hope it does something great and it brings awareness as much as it can. For one thing, if anything, at the lowest level, if it can help fathers be more protective of their children, to be more present with their families, then that movie has already won souls. And as far as the Cry Room goes, I'm going to have to put Pence in there. And the reason is because, number one, if you are running for president and knowing you have no shot whatsoever, and you're doing it because you can get a book deal out of it or more money out of it, you go in the Cry Room because you're doing it for yourself. But if you're actually thinking that you have a chance to win, then you're going in the quiet room because you can't read the room.
Yep, absolutely.
You know what's that face? Larry Enders. He's in the presidency. He's in the candidate for 3 months. He said he just raised $3 or $4 million. This Penn has a better chance at winning, at getting a vote than Larry does. Yeah, I'm 100% with them on that. It drives me batty.
All right, so who do you got?
Crowd room, I'm going with Chuck.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley, love the guy. He was one of my favorites growing up. Especially, I was rooting for him to beat Michael when he was with Phoenix. But he's out there talking about everyone, drink a Bud Light. If you have a problem with the flag, blank you in a sense. If you're gay, bless you. If you're trans, bless you. And we talk about Whitlock a lot. He brings that up, saying that, these black leaders that they're going after the population to try to almost groom them into accepting all this nonsense. And so I'm putting Chuck in there. And for the Saint of the Week, I'll go with Scott Nugent, who's the quote unquote accidental star of What Is a Woman. He did the trans thing. He transitioned back, and he's pretty much telling everybody about the problems and the depression, all the horrors that come from doing that surgery. He's getting, I guess he got pounded in the ground by this lady, or somebody was screaming at him during this interview. But he's been out there a lot trying to bring attention to this.
Okay, great. My Saints of the Week, there'll be groups this week. First is all the people out there at Catholic Palooza. Great. I think we need more events like that, Catholic Fellowship, and really just trying to connect people from all different walks who are Catholic into the idea of the universal church. I know Fwaz was there, and Hollowed, and a bunch, and 3D Wafer, and a bunch of other great artists. And I think that's a part of Catholic culture that we need to really dig into, because culture is all encompassing. And so I think we need to definitely not shy away from that. And I think Catholic Palooza and those, that younger generation of Catholics is really taking ownership of their faith. And that is a great example. My cry room suckers are going to be all the SAG writers, all those people who are demanding more money, even though if you actually look at the amount of money they make per week and per hour, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm happy to watch the entire Hollywood industrial complex collapse in on itself so it can be rebuilt. I hope these two, when having a competition between the two, I hope they both lose. I really do. It would be perfectly fine to watch both Hollywood and the actors and the writers and all these people completely just fall in on themselves due to pride and envy and all these other things. So you guys are my cry room for this week. And definitely, please go to Enoch's socials on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram. Check out his newest song, Far Away. Absolutely powerful song. Amazing song. Thank you.
I thought of Nickelback when it first came out.
Man, why you gotta do Enoch like that? Put him with Nickelback.
I couldn't get the song out of my head. I didn't even play it yet. I just
don't insult Nickelback like that.
I mean, they are Canadian, so it's okay. It's okay if you do in that regard, because
Catholic Paloozers. Am I right? Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Enough of that nonsense. All right, folks, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Please like, subscribe, and share the news from the pew to get the latest and notifications and all that stuff, so you are notified when this show goes live. Oh, shush! I'm muting you again. I got to mute him at the end of every show because I can't end. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.